Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited.
Thank you for having me.
So kind of the purpose of like having these conversations was just to kind of give other freelance paralegals kind of like, an insight in what's going on across the industry, and especially for people who are just interested in getting started and or people who have already got it started but they're kind of like at the very like beginning of their journey. And I think it's so interesting because we all have kind of like such different experiences and we got into it different ways, and everything is kind of happening in like such a different way for people. And so I thought it would just be kind of like interesting to have some conversations and to kind of show a different perspective from kind of a variety of different freelance paralegals. So I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to me today, and I look forward to sharing this with the group as well.
Thank you.
So how long have you been freelancing?
So I started doing it part-time around March of 2020, and then I transitioned to full-time in January of this year.
Okay, so not too long, like as far as between doing it part-time and then full-time.
Right.
How long were you working as a paralegal before you started doing it part-time?
About 4.5 years.
Okay, so it's not really a substantial amount of time. I know that people generally will say when someone's asking about doing freelance, oh, you need like 8 years, 10 years. And I think it can definitely vary, obviously, by the person and, how quickly you pick things up and all of that. Right. When you got started doing it part-time, how did you kind of make that transition? Like, were you doing work for people that you had already worked for in the past, or how did that kind of get started for you?
So I actually had joined your group to kind of figure out where to go, because I knew that I wanted to do it full-time, but I didn't really know how to kind of get started. And Knoxville Paralegal Services I had commented, I think I had actually like posted something asking if anybody was looking for something part-time. And Brooke had sent me a message and said, send me your resume. So I started doing work for her, and that's how I got started with it.
That's awesome. That's great. Were you doing the same type of work for her that you were already doing in your day job, or was it something different?
So it was mostly litigation and family law, which was what I had the most experience in.
Okay.
I did do like some research regarding like real property matters, which I didn't have quite as much experience in real property, but I had experience in legal research. So that was interesting, kind of doing something a little bit different that, I still had the ability to do it.
So. Yeah. Oh, that's really great. And I love that you got started with 4.5 years of experience, because I really like to be able to show people that they can do that, even though we do try to like, and I'm kind of guilty of it too. Like I usually tell people like, oh, like 8 to 10 years, but I think it really can vary like so much by the person. I mean, some people can just do the work like very easily from the start. And I think one of the challenges sometimes too, though, can be like building that network. So having access to the Facebook groups kind of helps you with that as well. So it makes it a little bit easier because you can more easily network with people just even outside of your own area.
Yeah.
So that's pretty handy. But that's cool that that's how you kind of got started. I really like that.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of make that transition then from doing it part-time to doing it full-time? Like, how did you know it was time to make that transition?
So last year was just a duty for all of us. So, obviously I knew that I wanted to make that change. All last year, I cannot stand a time clock. I hate being on a time clock. And I was working for the city of Wilmington, and, with government jobs, of course, like they get audited. So you have to be very specific on your time. And I did it, but I didn't like it. So I think it was around August or so, I was like, talking to my husband, like, do you think we can make this work if I were to make that transition? But I really felt like I needed like a bigger contract to be able to feel like I could really make that leap and be able to replace the income that I had with my full-time job. And so I was actually offered a contract, or started talking to the NC Equal Access to Justice Commission, which I had done some volunteering for them in the past. So that's kind of where the networking comes in. but had talked to them in September about a potential contract position and found out at the beginning of December that it had been funded. So that was when I was offered that, I decided, this is the time to go ahead and make that leap. And so my contract with them was to work up to 25 hours a week and just have like a set amount that they were going to pay me monthly. And that would leave me more time to still be able to do other contracts at the same time. So I started doing that at the beginning of January.
Oh, that's great. That's really good how that worked out.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, that's really good. So if you think about working with them or working with your other freelance clients, and you don't have to tell us like an amount, but do you have any kind of insight into how you choose your rates? Or do you have any suggestions for other people who are starting out on the considerations that they need to have when they're choosing their rates?
Yeah, so when I first started out, obviously I had that contract, which was just a set fee that I was being paid monthly. I think around the beginning of February was when I brought on 2 other attorney clients, and I set my fees way too low with them to start with. And I recently talked with one of them because I started doing more work for him, and just told him, I was like, look, if this is all you can afford to pay me, which I understand if that's the case, then, we're going to have to part ways. And obviously I said it in a different way than that, but he said, no, he's like, I want to keep you, what do you make with your other clients? And I told him, and he ended up more than doubling what he's paying me. So I would say really just trying to figure out, I didn't really think through exactly like all of the overhead that I'm having to absorb that an employer normally would have to absorb.
Mm-hmm.
So I think figuring out that amount and how much you really want to bring home at the end of the day and what you feel like your services are worth, that's kind of how you need to arrive at that.
Yeah, it's definitely important to consider all of the things that you're going to have to pay for: software, hardware, taxes, benefits if you have to include those. A lot of the freelance paralegals that we've talked to so far, and myself included, have been really lucky to have like spouses that we can get benefits from. And that definitely makes it a little bit easier. But, it's also a consideration that people have to have when they're trying to come up with their rates.
Right.
So it can get kind of tricky, and it's definitely a learning curve, but at least we can increase them.
Yeah.
At least we're not locked in.
Yes.
So I saw that you have a website, and I know you have a LinkedIn page as well. And so for the people that are listening, I'm going to include in like the comments and at the bottom of the video all of your information so that they can check it out. What tools are you using like to promote your services? Are you really like out there promoting your services right now, or are you kind of like happy with where you are right now with the clients that you already have?
Yeah, so right now I really can't take on any more work, so I'm not really actively trying to promote it. I will say that when I did get my website out there, that was actually when I got those other 2 clients. One was they were both referrals, but one was from a paralegal I had worked with on a volunteer basis before. She was working as co-counsel, or in an office that was working as co-counsel with a family law attorney who was looking for a paralegal, but she couldn't really hire anybody full-time yet. So she had sent her my website, and then the attorney called me. And then the other one was, I think it was somebody on the Paralegals of the Carolinas Facebook group, Alicia's group, that had mentioned that an attorney was looking for somebody to do basically like pre-litigation for personal injury cases. And so I contacted him, sent him my website, and that was how I got that. And then I also have a real estate company that contacted me from seeing my website about doing title searches. So once I got the website out there, that was when I really got all of that. I did pay someone to do my website. It was actually someone that I knew personally. And I still need to make some updates to it and that kind of thing. But I honestly just haven't had the time because I've had so much work.
That's a good problem to have. But your website looks great. I have it up on my other screen right now, and it looks really good. I like it. So I think it's kind of also good inspiration for other paralegals who are looking to do that. I know that there's some paralegals have kind of told us like, oh, I don't have a website. I only work with like people from word of mouth. I feel like it's really important to have a website, even if you're not actively looking for clients, because I just kind of feel like it just gives you that presence and people can go there and get all your information. And I don't know, I think for me personally, it's a really important piece of real estate to have.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy, even, if somebody doesn't want to pay someone just to do like a basic site, even if it just has like one page that looks nice with your contact information on it, I think it's a really good idea. But there's a lot of resources like for anyone who wants to create one, like on YouTube or on Google, just to, to walk you through kind of how to do a basic one. Right. But yours is great. I really like it. And I saw that you have a LinkedIn page. I haven't looked at it. I pulled it up, but I haven't looked at it. Do you use the LinkedIn page much or not really?
No, I do. I use it pretty regularly. I don't post a whole lot. I probably should post more, but I definitely use it. I try to keep it updated because whenever I am, or whenever I have in the past, wanted to update my resume or something like that, I actually kind of use that as, my most updated information, to kind of jog my memory and know what to put down and that kind of thing. So I definitely use it and keep it updated.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you only work for attorneys, right? As opposed to like, do you do any work for the general public or no?
So I did not want to limit myself to just doing legal work. So I actually have a few other things that I do that are not attorney related. I actually manage a couple of Airbnbs locally, for someone who lives out of state. I also do some administrative work for a real estate agent, for a broker. And I recently actually just got a part-time position as a corporate secretary for a hunting club.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So, yeah. And that was actually a referral from another paralegal. So that was interesting.
Oh, that's great. So you can kind of like really get creative and like branch out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot more social media stuff now, even though I didn't, start out to do that, but I mean, it pays just as well. So
that's what I actually do mostly for the real estate broker is her social media. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So I think people can really, there's kind of a lot of different options that you have. It doesn't have to just be like, specifically like what we're doing in our day job type of work, but you can definitely, I think, get a little creative and play to like other skills that you might have in order to offer a variety of different types of services.
Yeah.
Which really makes it kind of easier to keep that work coming in all the time.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to have several different streams of income. And also I like doing different things and I like changing it up. So I guess just kind of being a freelancer fits my personality in that way because I just like doing different things and always having something to kind of challenge me, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense. I like it. So I see that you're obviously using like a business name. So the name of your business, it's Royal Touch Legal and Business Solutions. Did you, I guess, at what point in your freelance journey did you kind of decide to start using the business name? Like right at the beginning or?
So I set up my LLC in October in preparation for going full-time at the beginning of the year because that was my goal. So I wanted to make sure that I had that already set up in advance. I did get error and omissions insurance through the business. And I went ahead and set up a business bank account at that time.
Okay. I think it's kind of one of the aspects that a lot of people don't think about when they're just thinking about, oh, I want to start doing freelance work is kind of all of these additional, business owner like functions that you're kind of doing, whether it's creating your business entity, opening a business bank account, getting insurance, doing the accounting, the billing, the collections, all of that stuff. So it's kind of not just like, oh, I want to do freelance legal work.
Right.
Also, you have a lot of other things that you kind of have to, be responsible for as well.
Right.
which is obviously one of the perks of being a regular employee, that you don't have to deal with any of that stuff.
Yeah. It was definitely
So
a learning curve. It was a lot. I'd say for the first 3 months, just learning all those things and realizing, I had just set up my LLC at the end of the year, and then come I think March or April, I had to go ahead and file my annual report, and I'm just like, just all these things. I got an accountant, so I, talked with an accountant, and I also I elected to tax my LLC as an S corp, and
mhm.
we have set up with a payroll company that I'm actually going to get a W-2 from my business, so they go ahead and pay all my taxes throughout the year, so I don't have to worry about doing that at the end of the year. So that was something else that I think was a big help for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I started doing that actually just at the beginning of this year, where I hired someone. Up until now, I had just been doing it
Mhm.
myself, and it just got to be like a handful. So starting at the beginning of this year, I started using someone to outsource all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
far it's definitely a lot easier.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I knew that from the beginning. I wanted to be able to use as much of my time as possible on income generating activities rather than
Yes.
kind of passive activities.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. So speaking of your usage of your time,
Mhm.
how do you think where you are currently as a freelancer compares to where you were in your regular employee career, as far as like work-life balance and having kind of more flexibility and freedom?
Yeah, I definitely have. So I do still work a lot of hours because I'm a little bit of a workaholic. But I also, another one of the reasons that I did want to freelance was so that I could homeschool my son.
Mhm.
So I actually started doing that at the same time as working full time. I don't recommend doing that. At least not making that transition at the same time. But I'm glad that we're a little bit more on a little bit of a groove. Um, so I'd have more time to be able to pick up it in the middle of the day and say, hey, we're going to go to the park. Or, like this morning, I was trying to get an appointment with the dermatologist for the last couple of months. They didn't have anything until November. And then she called me and said, well, we've got an opening this morning at 9:45. Can you come in? So I'm like, yes, I can actually do that. Just things like that, to be able to take care of that. My husband and I actually just moved this past weekend, and my son was able to go off with his sister and brother-in-law on a trip to Georgia for the weekend, so he wasn't here, and I was able to take off that time to be able to take care of family things. So really just not being tied down to a time clock is a big thing for me, because I do a lot of my work at night after my son goes to bed. So it's just kind of like my hours are probably still about the same, but the time of day that I work has changed.
Yeah, that's definitely nice to have that kind of flexibility to get creative with your hours.
Hmm.
I do the same thing. I have one client where I just do it like primarily on the weekends, like on, I don't know, like Sunday morning, I'm just like hanging out, watching TV or whatever, and working on, subpoenas or whatever, because
Hmm.
there's no kind of like specific, like actual hours or like schedule. It just, as long as it's getting done, on a regular basis, it doesn't
Right.
really matter when it's getting done. So that's definitely a huge perk.
Yeah.
And I'm planning like right now a trip for the beginning of November to go
Mhm.
out of town, I think for like 5 days. And as long as I have Wi-Fi, and I'll bring my laptop, and it's not going to affect anything. So that's really nice, because I don't have to worry about taking time off or not being able to get the work done. I can kind of just, get creative with my schedule.
Yeah. That was another thing is, this summer we actually took 2 road trips, and I wasn't driving either time. So I had my computer or my laptop and just worked off my hotspot. So whenever we
Yeah.
were driving, I was working, and then, just could kind of just arrange my schedule around that. So that was something that I've never been able to do before, that, this has kind of afforded me that availability to do it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, the technology that we have today to be able to just do that kind of thing. I've been doing the same. We went over Christmas on a road trip to Georgia. My stepdaughter lives in Georgia. So my husband always drives anyway. So I just had my hotspot and I was just working off my laptop in the passenger seat, getting everything done, versus, I don't know, sleeping or listening to music or whatever. So it was great because then I didn't lose out on I have a couple of clients where I do like regular, like every day, a certain amount of hours.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really great because I didn't have to miss out on any of those hours. And,
Right.
The cost for like the Wi-Fi service is a lot less than what I would lose financially if I wasn't doing the hours.
Yeah.
So, plus it gives me something to do while I'm sitting there. I don't have children, so I don't have to worry about, like giving them the attention or whatever. So I can just sit there and be working while he's driving.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes things a lot easier.
Yes, it does.
So do you think, like, obviously you're really happy freelancing now. So I'm assuming that you're planning on just continuing to freelance and you have no plans of returning to be a regular employee probably at any point. I'm assuming if it was up to you.
I don't have any plans to. I never know what life's going to throw at me, but I don't have any plans to. So
yeah, that's good. So let me see, what else do I have for you? I think we kind of went over all of the questions. Do you think, so we kind of talked about already that you had 4.5 years of experience. Mm-hmm. Do you think that there was any downside to only having 4.5 years of experience? Or do you think it really hasn't made any difference in your journey so far?
I can't think. I mean, other than just the usual things where you've got a client who's asked you to do something you've never done before, like that, maybe not having a bank of templates, to go to, or an attorney in the next room that you can go and say, hey, like, have you ever dealt with this before? But even with that, I mean, I do a lot of networking and I know a lot of attorneys because of the different types of networking I've done. So most of the time I can pick up the phone and say, hey, have you heard of this before? I can't really think of any downside to it. I feel equipped to do the type of work that I've been doing. So I don't feel like there's, I can't think of any downside right now.
That's great. I think a lot of people will be happy to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think that that's all of the questions that we had that most people kind of wanted to hear about. Mm-hmm. Do you have any just kind of general thoughts, or is there anything else that you feel like you'd like people to know if they're considering freelancing, like they haven't gotten started yet, or if they're just kind of getting started on their journey?
Really just networking. I mean, I've been North Carolina Bar Association member for, I guess, basically since I was a student. So I started as a student member and I recently joined NALA. So just doing those kind of things, written blog posts and things like that, just kind of like getting your name out there, and doing the networking. I think that's really, I think referrals is kind of where a lot of freelancers get their work. And that's definitely been the case for me so far. So I think really just doing that and not being afraid to try something new. I mean, obviously you don't want to do something you have no experience in because then that would be fair to the client. But, if it's something that they're willing to work with you on, don't be afraid to try something new. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think even, as regular paralegals working our regular day jobs, no matter how long you've been doing it, a lot of times you eventually at some point are going to encounter something that you haven't done before. Or, I mean, we see it every day in the Facebook group, like people asking for a form or a letter or sample language. So I guess it's really no different. Right. And it's really where the networking comes in, because then you have people that you can turn to. Mm-hmm. And even if you're not networking in person, you obviously have the Facebook groups that you can turn to. And there's such like a broad variety of experiences and, like different levels and different types of paralegals who have so much knowledge to share. So it's really a good resource when you're in that position, whether you're a regular employee or a freelancer.
Right. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
always just kind of looked at work as never thinking that I'm too good to do any menial activity, because I feel like everything that you do is kind of a stepping stone to something, bigger or better. And even the jobs that you have now, before you start freelancing, just getting your foot in the door, I feel like is even that I tell paralegal students that all the time, just get your foot in the door somewhere, and that will help you to be like a stepping stone to the next opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's great. That was all the questions that I have for you. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey so far. I know that everyone in the group is going to love hearing about it, especially that, they hopefully will feel more confident if they have less years of experience, because they're going to see that you are doing so well. So I really look forward to sharing this conversation into the group. I'm going to get it in there actually like just a few minutes after we finish talking, and I'll tag you in it, and I'll be sharing like your website and all of your information with it as well. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks. All right.